Let's step into a vivid moment from Abraham Lincoln's life, one that reveals the man behind the myth. Picture it. It's Springfield, Illinois, June 18, 1858. The air is thick with summer heat and anticipation. Lincoln, a lengthy, weathered lawyer turned politician, stands behind a crowd of about 1,000 at the Illinois state capitol. He's just been nominated as the Republican candidate for U.S. Senate. He's about to deliver a speech that will echo through history. This is the day of his House Divided address, and it offers a window into his character, his resolve, his moral clarity, and the quiet fire that drove him. Lincoln wasn't a natural speaker in the polished sense. At 49, his voice was high-pitched, with a Kentucky twang that betrayed his frontier roots. His face etched with lines from years of hardship. He wasn't handsome by conventional standards. His own law partner once called him the ungodliest figure. Yet when he stepped up to the podium, adjusting his spectacles and smoothing out his notes, something shifted. The crowd hushed. He had a presence, a gravitational pull, born not from charisma, but from an unshakable sincerity. That day, Lincoln was wrestling with a nation tearing itself apart over slavery. The Kansas-Nebraska Act had ignited a firestorm, and the Dred Scott decision had poured fuel on it, declaring that black people had no rights, which the white man was bound to respect. Lincoln's opponent, Senator Stephen Douglas, championed popular sovereignty. "Let the states decide on slavery," he said, "and keep the Union intact." Lincoln saw through the compromise. He knew it was a slow poison and not a cure. He began his speech with words he labored over for weeks, scribbling drafts by lamplight in his Springfield home. A house divided against itself cannot stand. The line was not original. Jesus said it first, but Lincoln wielded it like a blacksmith's hammer, forging a stark truth. "I believe this government cannot endure permanently, half slave and half free," he went on. "I do not expect the Union to be dissolved. I do not expect the house to fall. But I do expect it will cease to be divided. It will become all one thing or all the other." The crowd stirred, some nodded, others shifted uneasily. This wasn't politicking as usual. This was a man laying bare a conviction that risked everything: his career, his party's chances, maybe even the fragile peace. Lincoln's advisors begged him to soften the speech. "It's too radical," they warned. "It'll scare off moderates." Douglas would later twist it, accusing Lincoln of inciting war. But Lincoln stood firm. He wasn't there to win votes with platitudes. He was there to speak a truth he felt in his bones. That took guts, especially for a man who'd clawed his way up from splitting rails to the edge of national power, only to risk it all on principle. His sharp mind, deliberate and unafraid of complexity. Lincoln wasn't a firebrand hurling slogans. He spent the next hour dissecting the slavery crisis with a lawyer's precision. The scheming of pro-slavery forces, the Supreme Court's overreach, the hypocrisy of Douglas's don't care stance. He didn't just feel the nation's pain, he analyzed it, tracing its roots and forecasting its consequences. Yet he elevated it with folksy metaphors, comparing the expansion of slavery to a snake in a child's bed, making the abstract real for farmers and shopkeepers in the crowd. There was a weight in his words, a sense that he saw the storm coming long before others did. Lincoln wasn't naive about the cost of his vision. He'd lost his mother at a young age, buried a son, and wrestled with bouts of what we'd now call depression. That day in 1858, he wasn't promising easy victories. He was warning of a reckoning, one he'd later meet head-on as president. You can almost see it in his stooped shoulders as he stepped down, the applause fading, a man who'd rather bear the truth's burden than dodge it. He didn't win that Senate seat. Douglas took it. But the speech thrust him onto the national stage. 2 years later, it carried him to the White House. That moment in Springfield wasn't just a speech. It was Lincoln made pure. A blend of grit, intellect, and a quiet, stubborn faith that right could prevail, even if it broke the world first. That's who he was, not a saint, not a statue, but a man who forced a divided house and chose to mend it, whatever the cost. Thanks for watching.